Welcome everyone to our second What Are We Up To showcase and panel discussion under the newly formed RISD Black Alumni Association. Tonight, you will be hearing from two RISD alums share some of their RISD experiences, as well as see some of what they are up to. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce both of the panelists. I will share with you their bios, and then we will open it up for them to present what they're up to via a presentation, all right? But first, I want to introduce you to Morolake Odeleye. She is class of 07 photography and is the Director of Business Development at the Collective Layer. Odeleye is a visionary creative talent who hopes to be an integral part of the movement to make the advertising industry radically inclusive and socially progressive. Before coming to the world of commercial video, she worked for nonprofit organizations and local governments, building bridges between people and worthy causes. When she's not actively hanging out for the betterment of society, she's passively hanging out with her fam or traveling to new hangout spots all over the world. So everyone, welcome, Morolake Odeleye.
Hey, peoples.
All right, next up, we have Chereth Hines-Channer. She is class of 16 with Masters in Architecture. She was born and raised in San Jose, Costa Rica. She studied in Universidad Veritas, where she obtained a 5-year undergraduate degree in architecture. Upon graduation, she was accepted into RISD to pursue a Master's of Architecture. While at RISD, Chereth entered and won the Gensler Diversity Scholarship Competition and was offered an internship at Gensler at New York. After graduation, she was hired full-time as a job captain, where she worked for the next 3.5 years. At Gensler, she focused on corporate interiors and workplace projects. Later, Chereth transitioned into her current role at Cookfox as an intermediate architect. She is currently specializing in interior architecture for large base building projects, working closely with developers and commercial real estate companies. Chereth holds an LEED AP BDC, you'll clarify that for me, and a Fitwel Ambassador accreditation, and is currently pursuing the AREs for New York State. Everyone, please welcome Chereth.
Hi, everyone.
All right. And actually, so now I would like to actually turn it over to you, Chereth, to share with all of us what you're up to through your presentation.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome.
Okay, so can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so I would like to share a little bit of what I'm working on. As Vince mentioned, I am currently on Cookfox Architects, and so this is a project for Cookfox. So if you don't know where Cookfox is, so we are an architecture firm in New York City, and this is one of our projects called Terminal Warehouse. So it's very special because Terminal Warehouse, it was a warehouse that used to store goods in the 1800s, and now we're turning this building into a building that is meant for people. So the Terminal Warehouse is located in Chelsea, so between 27th and 28th Street and 11th and 12th Avenue. And it is the entire block, so it's a very big building. And one of the very special things about Terminal Warehouse was that this was a very iconic building, well, is an iconic building, and it is a landmark building. So this is what our proposal looks like. So we're trying to make this building accessible for people, meaning having more daylight into the building, a space where people can use it, work, and feel comfortable in it. So this is the east facade of it. And now we're looking at it if we are on 11th Avenue. So something very excited about this is that we're opening up the building, as I mentioned before, so incorporating a bit more of daylight and more of that biophilia into the space. So it's a bit better for the connection when people are working, and this is going to be a building that is an office space. The very cool thing about this terminal warehouse is that it's very famous for its iconic tunnel. So the tunnel used to be this, it's this giant kind of hallway where they would throw these really cool parties before. And all these artists would come into New York for this tunnel and the parties and the space. It's a very unique space. So it's one of the very cool things about this building, its tunnel. So my role in this project and in the firm in general is working in the interiors aspect of this. So how to make this building a bit better for the user in terms of the interior perspective. So a little bit about this terminal warehouse. We are a team of 20 people, and we are divided into interior and exterior people. The exteriors mostly work on the facades, the windows, and they coordinate with landmarks because, as I mentioned, it's a landmark building. And my team is the interiors. So we make sure that the interior lobbies, the amenities, the bathrooms, and all of that is coordinated and designed. So as you can see here, we're in this tunnel that used to be this iconic place, and we want to make this building still have that same feeling, but incorporating that nature element into the building. So this is if we were in the middle of the tunnel, and again having these pause points or large pause moments so we can overlook nature and kind of have that awe moment is what we're looking for in this building. And then we have another one, which is the interior lobbies. So again, we want to have this building kind of open up and be accessible for the users. And as I mentioned before, this is a really cool project because it's a very unique building. It's a very large building. It's 1.2 million square feet. And so working with a large group and kind of coordinating everything has been very fun, but also very rewarding and learning a lot about, the building. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share. The project is under construction right now. And so we're working on the exterior. And then after the exterior is done, we're gonna start to work on the interiors. Yeah, so that will be all.
Thank you so much, Chereth, for sharing your project and what you're up to with us. I just want to make a note to all of you that are listening. Hopefully you were taking some notes and maybe have some questions for Chereth, but before we open it up for you to ask questions about this project that she just presented to you all, we are going to hear from Morolake, and during our Q&A session, we will open up the floor for you all to be able to ask any questions that you have, whether it's regarding the conversation that we are having or the work that they've presented. So just keep that in mind as we go through a session. So thank you again, Chereth. We'll be hearing from you shortly. Next up, we would love to hear from Morolake. What are you up to?
Hey.
Hey.
Well, just changing the world one day at a time.
Naturally.
Always. Well, guys, hi. So yes, I am the director of business development for a production company called The Collective at Lair. And we produce video for all screens. So we're platform agnostic. The majority of the work that we get to do is commercial work, but we also do work for retail applications, social media, nonprofit videos. If it's got a video element, we're down to do it. So I wanted to start off by giving you a taste of some of the stuff that we do. I'm going to start off with a piece that we're super proud of because we don't often get to do work at this scale. But this one is for the United Nations, so you can get a sense of our capabilities.
It is such a gift to live amid such immeasurable beauty, to walk through splendor that so profoundly touches every one of our senses, to each be a tiny part of the story of this astonishing place we all know as planet Earth. And yet, right now, at this moment, all too undeniably, the story is changing in alarming ways.
High temps and humidity are stifling parts of the country today. The annual average temperature.
In the wake of humanity's impact, we must set our ambitions higher with the world watching. It is our responsibility to accept the challenge so very urgently upon us, to be the generation that charts a new course for humanity, so we can seize the incredible opportunities before us. With the world demanding, today we must set our ambitions higher and turn ideas into actions. We are here, ready to answer the call.
Cool. So that piece was awesome. And we got the chance to do that because of the relationships that we built. So my job as the business development director is really to forge the connections that allow us to take on projects like that. So to get to know the producers, to get to know the key decision makers inside of brands, inside of nonprofits, so that when they have a project that they want done, they think of us and they turn to us to do it for them. So that project came together really quickly, actually. We were in conversation with the client for months. They waited until the absolute last minute to say yes to us. And then we had 6 weeks to figure out how to put that together. Sorry, looking at my notes because I'm sure I've forgotten something. So in addition to building those relationships with kind of agencies and nonprofits, my job is also to build relationships with directors. So most production companies out here have like a core group of people who work for them. It's like in our organization, I want to say it's between 6 and 7 people who are there full time. And we are like the crew, but the directors are really what you would consider the captain of the ship. And so we have a rotating roster of about between 12 and 14 directors, and they each do something completely different. So it's my job to identify these people, to bring them on board, to get them, to convince them to work with us, and then to shop them out to different clients. So each one of these directors, they have different capabilities, they have different styles. And so I just wanted to give you a sense of the breadth of work that we do out there and these kinds of directors. So the first director that I'll show you is this guy, Steven Weinzierl. He's known for like super poppy visuals. Like if you want something really sleek, you know, it needs to look expensive and it needs to like be super amazing and have a wow factor, this is your guy. like everything he does has that kind of like, ow, like mic drop moment. On the complete other side of the universe, we have a director, Brian Haynes, who does all of this like really charming stop motion work. And so here we have a piece for Bird's Eye Vegetables.
Tired of fresh veggies going bad? Introducing Bird's Eye Recipe Ready Vegetable Blends. Take prep time out of dinner time.
So super fun, super easy. Most of our work, you know, it's so funny, you do these projects and you're working on them for weeks and weeks at a time, and then it's boiled down to 15 seconds. And so that's the final. And then the third one that I wanted to show you, this is some of the broadcast arm of our work. So we work with different television shows to produce promos. And on occasion, they're like cross-branded. So, you know, you'll have like Vikings will do a spot that's advertising Vikings and the Dish Network, or, you know, that kind of thing. So this one is, well, I won't even tell you what it's for, but it's a really fun one. It's by a director who's really great at beauty stuff. So when you think of like, you know, glowing skin, fabulous, you know, just beautiful people, she's the one you go to.
Exfoliate, cleanse.
Oh, hold on, sorry. I'm not sure why it started in the middle.
Exfoliate.
Oh.
Exfoliate, cleanse, and moisturize immediately. That call took me back. I come from a town where the chicken outnumber the people. They were nice and all, but it was the dry skin for me.
RuPaul's Drag Race, Friday at 8, only on VH1. Brought to you by Olay Body.
Don't be a dusty bird.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. It cut off like the first 10 seconds where like she like is like super appalled because like somebody calls and they're ashy, and it's like an amazing moment. And like it makes me snort every time I see it. And I'm so sorry. I don't know why I got cut off, but you'll just have to take my word for it. But that was one of those beautiful projects that came together because we just happened to meet this director, Ree Borgado, and Ree had this really interesting background where she actually goes by they, excuse me, where they had a ton of beauty work for the Urban Decay brand, but also had this crazy portfolio filled with like horror stuff. So like, right, like had all of this like crazy gory makeup and like for scare TV. It was just a really weird combination of things, but they were looking for someone to help kind of push them beyond their own immediate networks so that they could expand some of the work that they were doing. And so, you know, we were like, absolutely, let's figure this out. We set up meetings with people at Viacom, with honestly, people all throughout our network. We're based here in New York City, and Viacom headquarters is here in the city. And it was one of those beautiful things where Viacom had just made a commitment to hire more diverse directors. They wanted at least 30%, a third of all of their spots to be shot by non-white males. And so, you know, we brought Ree in the door. There was like this immediate like love connection that happened. And then also because Ree is a gender non-conforming person, a member of the LGBTQI community, it just felt really important to have someone who could represent that community be guiding this spot. Because, you know, we all hate those moments where you see something and you're like, well, that was an unnecessary cringe moment. So that's something that, you know, we look for a lot, trying to figure out how do we diversify this field? How do we make sure that the right people are behind the camera so that it's not just representation in front of the camera, but we're actually in the writing room, that we're actually making the decisions to push forward positive narratives around our communities. So outside of that, the last things that I wanted to show you were about the kind of development of our directors that we try to do. I mean, this is commercial work. You know, we know that we're not, you know, necessarily going to change the world, though we are holding out hope. But we try to encourage our directors to pick a thing and do that thing really, really well. And it should be the thing that you're passionate about, that you would do for free anyway. And so we have this one director who really took that to heart. And, you know, he's known for, again, really, really polished visuals, but he had decided that he also loved dance, and he wanted to somehow incorporate his love of dance into the work that he does. And so he found an opportunity to work with Ballet Met. He actually, the lead choreographer was a personal friend of his. And so he created this passion project that then we used to parlay into more and more work for him. So he gets to do more and more of the stuff that he likes to do. I totally skipped by this, so we'll just move on to this. So these are the three that I'm going to show you, just to kind of show the evolution of this is what happens when you put a stake in the ground, and then we can work with you to make sure that that's the kind of stuff that sorry. Whew. This is it. Okay, my apologies. That one is also cut off for some strange reason. Give me one moment and I will actually give you the right one. All right, I have it here. How do I stop sharing? Oh, there it is. Okay, let me reshare, guys. Sorry, bear with me. All right. Gorgeous, right? He's so freaking fabulous. So he does that, and then we're like, okay, well, that's amazing. So we take that and we shop that to clients, and then he has the opportunity to work with another brand. This is for Acer Computers, bringing that into the mix.
Performance. Pushed to the limit. Nimble, strong. It's a delicate balance, a challenge that defines who we are, the rules, norms, and our very past. Performance thrives on new methods, better solutions. It embraces innovation, celebrates creativity, and gives meaning to the word stylish. It dares us to push harder, look deeper. It breaks it down to millimeters. It dares us to try, and we accept the challenge. Acer Swift, leading the trend in style.
Great. And then the final one, this is actually the most recent piece that he got to do, which you won't see in the US because of regulations, but here you go. Cool. So in a nutshell, oh gosh. I guess you all can see this one. It's kind of embarrassing. Am I still here? There we go. Am I still shared? No? All right. So all of this beautiful work happens, but really what I do is I have meetings. So I'm constantly emailing people. I'm constantly seeing what they're up to. I'm constantly seeing, like, is there a vibe here? You know, I'm like the I'll take you out to coffee person. I have the expense account. You know, when it was before the pandemic, it was like, how many steakhouses can we go to? You know, I'm the schmoozer of the group. So, you know, if you have any questions about the creative, I'm more than happy to put you in touch with the hardworking folks who put that together. But I really forge the connections and get us the work. So that's it. Thank you, guys.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Morolake, for sharing this work with us. So there you have it. We're gonna just jump right into some questions now that I have for you all. So let me get that in front of me here so that I don't forget any of these questions, because I think they're good. So the first question that I have, we're going to take a step back in time and have you sort of like place yourself back at RISD, right? And I want you, Cherry, this is for you to answer first. Of course, Morolake would love for you to chime in afterwards. What was one memorable moment at RISD that you had?
Yeah, so I think my most memorable moment was actually the first time that I stepped into RISD. So it was right after I got accepted, and I was visiting the campus. And then I was super excited, but it was when I actually stepped into RISD that I just felt like I was home. And it was such a great feeling that I had. And I just remember that just feeling like I belonged at RISD, and that same feeling I carried throughout like my 2 years of my master's, and I just really enjoyed it. I always say that I wish that I stayed longer, like more than my 2 years, because it was like such a comfortable moment. And so yeah, it was like the first time I was at RISD.
Awesome, thank you for sharing that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so beautiful.
I know, I was like, I wrote down my answers and mine's not that beautiful, but I remember I just had this flashback of thinking about freshman year, and I was doing a project where I was like turning just like a tree on campus into a bottle tree, which is, you know, like I think it's a Southern tradition. I haven't really researched it, but it's just something I grew up knowing about. And so I had collected like all of these different glass colored bottles, like over the course of weeks, and like had lugged them all out to the tree that I was going to put them in. And then I went to like a facilities place to get a ladder, and I came back and my bags were gone, and the RISD grounds people had like thrown it in the back of their garbage truck and were driving down the street. And then I just like ran as fast as I could, screaming and waving my arms like, please don't throw away my project. And they were like, oh yeah, no, we just thought it was trash. I was like, yeah, I mean, clearly. So it just reminded me of all the adventures at RISD.
So I have to catch my breath on that one. That is definitely a memorable moment. Actually, both of you made me think about, you know, my first time stepping on the campus, which I was super excited about as well. You know, just like everything was like there was like harps playing. I was like, oh, everything was just like just glorious, right? And then I do also remember a project that it did not get taken away, but I was very nervous about it because to anyone walking by, which seemed like it was garbage. So thankfully that did not happen, but that definitely was a fear for this project. It was a 3D project on my freshman year, actually. I like hid things in the bushes and stuff, and it, again, somebody could have saw it and like, what is this doing here, and threw it away. So thank you both for sharing that. My next question actually will come to you, Morolake, first. So what did it mean as you know, we have this newly installed RISD Black Alumni Association, and I want to talk about a little bit I want you to share what it meant for you being Black at RISD.
So yeah, so RISD, so I'm originally from Atlanta, and going to RISD was the first time I'd ever been a minority, really. So it was a very alien experience to be the only one in my department. And then to have conversations around, I don't know, just about things that you take for granted because they're your cultural understanding of the world. Or, you know, because you live these experiences, because you are the race that you are, to have those things be cast in doubt for people to be like, that's not real. Or like, you are overreacting. You know, I just remember doing some art and it was all very racial. It got very racial at RISD because the experience of being the only one just amplified so much of my existence. But I just remember someone being like, I don't know why you are such a pessimist. I mean, Obama. And I was like, I don't even know where to go with that statement. But so it was very eye-opening in that, you know, it forced me to actually understand white people better, because I got to see what they saw kind of for the first time, and also just appreciate, you know, where I came from, and you know, appreciate, oh, that there is a uniqueness and there is a differentness about me and my people that, you know, contrary to some of the conversations that I have in school, it's not a bad thing, but something to be protected.
Love that. Thank you. Chereth, love to.
Yeah.
From you.
So I have a kind of a different experience. So I, mentioned before, I'm from Costa Rica, and in Costa Rica, there wasn't a lot of Black people at all. So I was always the only person anywhere. And when I came to RISD, yes, I was different, but I felt like everybody was different in their own way, that we were all different together. So I felt like I belonged more because there were a lot of different people that were like me. And then that was a different experience than what I had at home, because nobody was different. And I was kind of like the only person out of the group. So that's why with the first question, I felt like I was at home and I belonged, because we were all a bunch of different people together. Yeah, and I really enjoyed my time. I was sometimes the only Black person, but I sometimes met other Black people too, and I never had that experience coming from Costa Rica, so I really did appreciate it.
Very nice. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about outside of the doors of RISD. What was your first job post RISD, Morolake?
Well, immediately outside of RISD, I became an art teacher at a summer camp. But as far as full-time employment, I went into I started working for the Fulton County Art Council as their public art registrar, where I was cataloging and essentially recommending for maintenance public art, and also doing contracting with public artists while attracting public artists to the registrar. So it was very, very admin heavy. But coming out of RISD, you know, it became very clear that I needed to pay off these student loans. So I went into regular paid work very quickly.
Nice. Yep. I'm sure I can attest to that as well. Chereth, what was your first job post RISD? First full
Yeah. So I worked in Gensler, New York City, which was where I interned. And so that was my first job out of school, and I was there for about 3.5 years. And I guess it was different because, you know, when you're in school, you're used to being kind of the owner of your work and creating and being very creative. And immediately I got into this job where it was very technical. And so I had to put all of kind of like my design skills aside and kind of focus on this technical work that I was doing. So I was mostly just doing kind of construction documents. And at the beginning, it was a learning curve, but then I realized that those skills were actually very helpful to reinforce kind of like my design perspective. So I did appreciate it that, I got in, and immediately as I was kind of fresh out of school, I was able to get all that technical experience in, and then kind of ramp up the design. So yeah.
Very nice. And speaking of which, what inspires you to create, Cherry?
Yeah, so I think what inspires me to create, it might be a bit naive, but I want to make the world a better place. And I think the only way I could do that is by designing. I can't see blood. I can't be a doctor. I'm not gonna run into a burning building, but I can design to make a place better for the people, and that's what I would like to do. And so that inspires me every day. Like we mentioned before, being the only person and kind of having different perspectives is also what helps me and inspires me. And hopefully one day we can make a world a better place.
Love it. Yes. Sign me up +1 for that. Making the world a better place.
Yeah.
Morolake, what inspires you to create?
Well, I mean, I guess, my creativity, I wouldn't say it comes out at work necessarily, but I do, in my spare time, I am a crafter because I can put it away, and, it's just an easy thing I can do. And so actually at the moment, I am in a big weaving phase, and I have my little loom here at the house. And so, I think the fantasy that kind of drives me, I really wish it was world peace. I do, but it's really just a desire for some like peace and quiet, like just little meditative space. What inspires me to create is like the same thing that keeps me doing yoga and meditating. It's just like a desire for calm and tranquility. And so, it's a lifestyle choice. I'll do it forever, because as long as like I need to keep the stress down, I'll be creating.
I mean, that's super useful right now, especially given the times that we are in, which are quite unique. So definitely a piece of that peace is needed for us all. Why? This is getting a little into the depth of, what it is that you do at work. And so I'll start with you, Cherry. Why are you doing the work that you're doing? What's your why? And if it's not regarding the work, but what is your why?
Yeah, so I think it relates to the previous question. But also, I guess, as architects, we design buildings for people, right? And eventually we kind of dictate how people are going to use these spaces or these buildings. And I do it because I love seeing people use what you create. And then sometimes coming up with other ways of how they would use this space. I think it's very cool for me just to see. And then the whole process, when you start to drawing it, when it actually gets built, is very impressive to see that, you started drawing that and eventually it becomes like this masterpiece. Yeah, it inspires me just to see how people use our spaces.
Yeah, it's nice, wonderful. Morolake.
That's great. I'd say that I do the work of relationship management because it is the lifestyle that makes the most sense for my personality. It's funny because at first I thought I was an extrovert, but it's one of those things where I doubt it. Like what I actually really like is, I like that my daily job is to figure out how to talk to people. It doesn't mean that I'm talking to people all day, but it does mean that I'm constantly strategizing around what could make this person's work easier. what might they be looking for? It's anticipating people's needs and constantly thinking about people. And so that's fun for me. The like lunches and stuff are just like a perk, like that's really cool. But yeah, no, I've always kind of drifted towards relationship management work here in advertising. And before this, I was in the nonprofit sector because it gives me an opportunity to just be constantly thinking about somebody else and how I can make their world and their day, or, help them achieve their mission, which I've always just thought was, pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
One thing that as you were just sharing that, Morolake, your previous response as it relates to the sort of like the create question, and as you were talking about connecting people and thinking about how to have conversations with people, I was thinking about Cherry, what you said about, creating spaces so that, people can engage with those spaces and feel sort of welcome in those spaces, that your form of what you're doing is highly creative, because there is a method, and there is a way in which to engage with different kinds of people for the work that you're doing. So I could not do that job that you're doing. And so I think there's such a huge level of creativity in that, in having those conversations and approaching people. So I just wanted to share that. Why? Because it came to mind. So what keeps you excited about the work that you're doing, Morolake? I feel like you kind of started talking about it, but I'd love to, if you haven't, love to hear like what keeps you excited about doing it.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's definitely the relationship management part, which is cool. But I think what keeps me excited is the thought that, well, especially like in this moment in time, there's such a push for diversity in the advertising industry, and in particular behind the camera, which is a huge opportunity to find new, upcoming, emerging talents of color and be a part of their journey as they kind of get put on. So like that seems really exciting to me. Outside of the like 9 to 5 work, I'm also get to meet people who are just like film directors and like TV writers and like this like whole ecosystem of creative people. And I'm just so excited to like one day be able to like pull out that like business card. Like, I know somebody who can help you. Like, so that's what keeps me going.
That is awesome. I love that. Yeah.
Chereth, I'd love for you to share what keeps you excited about what you're doing. Yeah.
I think what keeps me excited is seeing that end result, because we draw these buildings, and it excites me to see them just being built. And sometimes I don't have the chance to kind of oversee the whole process, but I think that's something that I would love to do, kind of oversee that whole process, because to me, that's what excites me. Just seeing that project from paper into just full on construction.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. My last question before we get into, any questions that those of you who are watching and listening that you may have, will turn to you. But before we do that, I have this question for the both of you. What do you hope to accomplish with the work that you are doing? I'll start with you, Cherry.
Yeah, so I think, as I said before, I just want to make it a better place, and it takes some time, but I think that having different spaces and different architects or designers that come from different backgrounds does influence the way we design these different spaces. So it's important, as more like you mentioned, having that diversity. It's starting to grow a little bit more, but I think we need more of that. And so I just hope that we can have that change and have that inclusivity.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Morolake.
Yeah. I mean, very similar. You know, when I started at Lair, we had 13 directors on our roster, and they were all white men. And since then, we've expanded to 14 directors, and I want to say that like 10 of them are white men. So, you know, it's slow progress. But I would say that at this point, my goal really is to have at least half of our roster be people of color and women, so that we can actually, like, you know, shake the shit up.
Yeah, I love that.
Love it. Yes, rightfully so. Again, given the time that we are in right now and all that's happening in the world, but also here specifically in the U.S., definitely would like to see more change as it relates to you know, more diversity in people making decisions with regards to the work that is being done, that both of you have mentioned. We have one question. What role did networking and mentorship play in getting to where you are now? Either one of you could take that first.
Well, I can talk about networking. That's my job.
Yep.
So, so for years, I took the approach of find a job online, apply to it, go through the interview process. And what I found consistently, and it might just be me and my bad luck, was that I constantly got put into these positions where people were asking for unrealistic things. The team wasn't super invested. It just wasn't a great look. And so when I decided to leave the nonprofit sector, I decided to do something completely different, which was not to apply for any jobs. So instead, I asked people that I knew who were inside of advertising if they would introduce me to other people, not with any job request, but I just wanted to know what they did. I didn't know how advertising worked. And so I took people to lunch, and it was over 6 months. I think I had lunch with 11 different people. Anyone who would meet with me, and they all did different things. Some were creative directors, some were art directors, some were on the sales side, some were producers. And out of that, I met someone who thought that I would be a natural for a sales team at a production company, and just happened to know someone who was looking for a part-time someone. So all that to say, like, it was 6 months of just open-ended exploration, to try to figure out where I might fit, not just my skills, but also just to be in an environment that was healthy, and that, you know, I could just enjoy going to work on a daily basis. So I landed a part-time job at a very small production company based in Dumbo in Brooklyn. And I want to say it was more or less like an internship, because I worked for them like 2 days a week, and then was just living off of money I had saved up, and was like, I really hope this works out. And about 4 months later, a woman from actually my current sales partner got in touch with me. She found me on LinkedIn, and asked me if I'd be interested in the full-time role. And so, you know, we started just having that conversation. So from the beginning of the journey to landing where I am now, it was about 10 months total. And just being patient and open to, you know, whatever came my way.
Yeah. And one of the things that I want to highlight in your journey that I think is worth sharing with those who are listening, whether it's a student, specifically, I'll kind of cater this to those who are students who are eventually going to find themselves in the same position in terms of looking for a place of employment. That you spoke about the process of exploring and leaving yourself open. I think that to a degree ties into some of what we learned even in our freshman year at RISD, or just at RISD in general, in terms of, being open to exploration and really diving deep into the why and looking at a problem at all angles, right? And not just taking the traditional route, which you started off saying, like this, you apply for the job, you see the job, you apply for the job, and that's sort of like how we're taught to do it. But I think that your sort of creative approach in that, by saying, I want to just get in touch with the people who are in the space, I think that's worth sharing, because not oftentimes is that shared or is that encouraged. And it worked out, thankfully, because you are where you are, knowing the work that you're doing.
And what I'll say, to anyone interested in doing that, because I think a lot of people fear reaching out to strangers and asking them for meetings. But, again, I do this for a living, so I'm desensitized to it, but I can understand. But people are flattered. People are flattered that, especially if you don't want anything from them, but just to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
If you'll take them out to lunch, obviously offer to pay for lunch. I mean, don't be weird, but you take them out to lunch. You pick their brain, you ask them questions, and you tell them about yourself, and you learn from those experiences. They're always helpful. And again, if people have time, they'll do it, because there's nothing more flattering than you reaching out to someone and saying, I'm interested in you.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I can relate to that, because I think that I'm still early on in my journey, that I'm trying to still figure out what I'm doing. And like you mentioned, Morolake, I've reached out to people, and I think it's really good to have those conversations. And I think for me, I'm having conversations of kind of with other Black professionals, just because I can't have those conversations in my office because there's no other Black professionals, it's just me. So I reached out to all these other people just to kind of hear, what their experience is, what do they recommend for me. And it's just, like you said, soaking it all in and just hearing their experience, and then just shaping my experience kind of with whatever they said. And I also think that for the mentoring part, I think it's important, because in my first job, they told me, always ask for help, because there's always somebody that knows how to do it better than you. And I think at school, we often spend like a lot of time kind of figuring the puzzle out ourselves, but it takes a lot of time, right? And when you're in your job, you can't take that much time. You just got to do it quickly. So I found out just to reach out to the right people about the right tasks. And those became my mentors. And I have, a few mentors from my other job that I really love and appreciate. And until this day, I ask them for some suggestions, even though I'm in this new other role. And I think along the way, you're going to meet like a bunch of people that are going to come up to be like your mentors and are going to shape kind of like your career. And yeah, I just love having those discussions with people, because you never know what you're going to learn.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm looking at chat, I'm looking at the time, and there aren't any other questions in the chat. Please feel free to put them in there if you have any. I'm actually going to go into the last question, since we're kind of talking about mentorship and networking, which I think really just it spans across generations, and where you are, whether you're a student, current student, or even an alum, that those things are always still very important. I believe. So with this last question, what is one thing that you would say to your freshman year self at RISD, or your senior year self at RISD? So you choose, but if you could sort of see yourself entering into RISD, what would you say? Or when you are about to leave, what would you tell yourself, knowing what you know now and have experienced? And Cherry, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I would say, I would tell probably first year Cherry, because I only did 2 years for my master's. But I would tell first year Cherry to try everything, And that's something that I live with now. Never say no to any task or anything, because you never know what you're going to learn. And I think try other kind of either classes or groups, or involved in more things that I think I could have done at RISD that I didn't do. And I think that if I would have done that, I would have probably learned more, and more outside architecture. I think it's what's important, because it's not only about architecture, it's about a little bit of everything, that I think that's what I'm missing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Morolake.
For sure. So I think I would talk to my senior year self, because I remember very vividly, right before you graduate RISD, they have like an assembly for all the people who took out student loans, and they tell you that you got to pay back these student loans, and they scare the crap out of you, because they're like, you got to pay these student loans, you got to pay them on time, you got to pay them right now. And it's very frightening for an art student who's just spent all this wonderful time in their emotions and creating for years. And then somebody comes to you with this massive bill and they're like, it is due. Okay. So I would talk to senior year Morolake and tell her that those student loans aren't going anywhere and you just need to live your life. Okay. So, like I definitely made decisions about what I would do immediately following RISD based on the urgency and the panic of, I have to make money right now. This isn't like a regret. It's just thinking back on it. One of my closest professors at RISD really, really wanted me to apply to the Whitney Studio program directly out of school. And the Whitney Studio program is freaking fabulous, but they, at the time at least, they didn't pay you a stipend. They didn't help you with living expenses. And it's in New York. And I was like, okay, I got all these student loans and I got no place to live. And y'all aren't helping pay for anything. And you just expect me to like show up and be a fabulous creative person who just magically survives here. And I was like, that can't happen. But I would absolutely tell senior year Morolake to swing for the fences. Like, again, your student loan people, they'll find you. Go live your life. Right? Right?
You certainly will,
so,
boy.
I will. Like, don't even worry about it. Yeah. Don't worry about it. You'll be just fine. If you tell them you can't afford it, they'll figure out a way to charge you, $20 a month or whatever it is. Yeah. But do the brave thing. Do the I'm fresh out of college. I've got no obligations. I'm just out here to live and experience. Do the thing, because who knows? I'm really, really happy with where my life is right now. But I mean, I might own a boat. I might be a famous artist. I mean, who knew if I had done that instead? We'll never know. We'll never know, guys.
You won't. But I on that note, that both of your insight and wisdom, where you are now with trying as many things as you possibly can once you're there or while you're at RISD, and then also where you're getting ready to leave and you are presented with scary demands, to not use them as a crutch to continue to explore. Because I think that is one thing that RISD has taught us all really well, is to not be afraid to explore and to ask questions and ask the hard questions, and then be diligent about finding the answers for that in a creative manner. And I think that as you continue to go about your journey and doing so, it definitely does yield some pretty surprising results that I think will support the journey. So thank you both for being with us this evening and sharing what you are up to, and your advice. I had a good time with the both of you, Morolake and Chereth. These are exciting events for me, because I get to either reconnect or meet new Black alum from RISD that are doing all kinds of things that may relate to the major, may not relate to the major, but I think the diversity and the brevity of being able to see what comes out of RISD is really exciting, because one of the things that I would say and argue that is a through line with what you all presented to us tonight and what you talked about is that there's still a level of critical thinking and creativity behind the work and behind what you do. So thank you again for sharing all of that with us this evening. It is 3 minutes after, so thank you for staying 3 minutes beyond the time. Before we release you, I do want to also thank the founding members of the Black Alumni Association, Karen Harris, Tiffany Cooper, Ashton, Agmo. I'm so sorry, but I'm gonna try this last name one more time. Ashton Agbomenu, Christina Scholar, and a special thank you to Danielle Kachapis and her team at the Office of Alumni and Family Relations for helping to coordinate this event tonight in setting up the Black RISD Alumni Association. We do have a LinkedIn group page, so if you're not on it, please go to LinkedIn and look for the RISD, excuse me, Black Alumni Association and join the group.